Hello and welcome to the Mindset and Mindfulness Podcast with me, your host, Sandy Powell. Hello and welcome to today's episode. Our guest today is Sophie Biggerstaff. She's an online business mentor, an educator, and a mental health advocate. She left a corporate career in buying for some of the world's biggest fashion brands, including Ralph Lauren, Kate Spade, and Burberry, to venture into entrepreneurship back in 2020, and she hasn't looked back. Alongside becoming a business owner, she's been on a long healing journey to improve the symptoms of her anxiety and undiagnosed ADHD, which in turn prompted the launch of her second business, Tina, which stands for Time is Not a Healer, and it's the world's first mental health marketplace. Welcome, Sophie.
I'm excited to chat to you today.
Yes. Could you tell us a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Sophie. I'm from the UK. I'm 32. I have dabbled in many different things, as you can probably tell from that introduction. But essentially, most of my career, like the early days of my career, was spent in the fashion industry, where I was working as a buyer for some of the world's biggest fashion brands that you've just listed out. And essentially I went on this path like in my early 20s. I was like super career focused, super career driven, really wanted to work in the fashion industry regardless of how toxic I kind of knew it was. But I kind of fell on this like path of just like working my way up this like career ladder in the buying world, in the retail world. And I was good at it. So I stuck at it. I knew that I was good at it. I was getting promoted constantly. I was always being told that my work was good. So I went on this long career path through with buying, but I always kind of felt like this isn't actually for me. Like I had that like gut instinct that actually maybe this wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. So I changed jobs quite a lot, thinking, oh, maybe it's just this job. Maybe I've kind of expired, had outgrown this role and I need to go into a new role. Or maybe I need to go and do work for this company, or maybe I need to change countries. So I was like in my early 20s, like really trying to explore, like, why do I feel this level of unease, unsettlement? I don't quite know how to explain it. I wasn't really in tune, I don't think, with like my emotions or like how I was feeling at the moment, that moment in time. I didn't really understand why I was feeling unhappy when actually on paper I had somebody's dream job. I was working for all of these amazing brands. I was getting paid a decent salary. I had the life, I had the boyfriend, I had like the property, and it was all just that kind of that like white picket fence life, if you like. But I wasn't fulfilled by that. And then it wasn't until I got to about 26 and my kind of whole life kind of crumbled down around me, where I was really starting to struggle with my mental health. I didn't really know how to label that at the time. I just knew that I wasn't happy and that I felt like things were kind of closing in on me and I needed to make some changes in my life. I lost a relationship broke down. I nearly lost my job because of my poor mental health, because I really wasn't performing, because I was going into work every day, having panic attacks, and nobody could really support or help me. I had to kind of figure out how to help myself. So from like the age of 26, I kind of went on this like healing journey, if you like, to try and figure out, like, learn about what was happening to me, learn about like what was going on, and then try and figure out like what I could do to help myself. I would say I kind of started within the fitness space and like started really getting into like a fitness routine, into nutrition and understanding it from that perspective. But I still felt like there was more for me to explore and understand. I was still experiencing anxiety even when I went into a new job, and gradually these calls of like, this isn't what you're meant to be doing, kept getting louder and louder and louder, until I was like, I have to make some massive life changes. I can't just sit here in my comfort zone anymore. Maybe that's contributing to the anxiety that I'm feeling. So in 2020, as many people did, I had a big life shift. I'd actually already quit my job working as a buying manager at Burberry before the pandemic even was announced. And I was due to leave in April 2020 and go traveling around South America, because another passion of mine is travel. I've been traveling on and off for the past 10 years, like in holidays and things like that through work. But obviously I wanted to go and do something, go and travel and see if that could help me identify like what was this lingering like unease that I was feeling. So I quit my job in December 2019, and then obviously I had a notice period. I was due to leave in April and go traveling, and I couldn't. I got stuck. I was stuck in London. I had a mortgage to pay. I didn't have a job. I had nowhere to go. I just had to sit at home and try and figure out what I was going to do. And there was, especially in the fashion industry, that was really struggling because obviously all the stores were closed. There was no jobs for me to go and apply to. So I had to kind of figure it out. And that's when I kind of took that leap into entrepreneurship and started my first business, which was essentially e-commerce consultancy. And then that's kind of evolved from there. And I set that up from a place of, I want to be able to be free, and like I really value freedom as a person, and I wanted to be able to be in control of my own time, in charge of my own finances, in charge of where I could work in the world. Like working in the fashion industry, you don't have the opportunity to travel and like work from anywhere in the world, like unless your job is taking you to that place, which I'm lucky it did, but never really allowed me the flexibility. I had to obviously follow the rules of the company. So I really wanted to build a business that allowed me to have that flexibility so that I could travel. And for the past few years, I've actually been building that business whilst being nomadic and traveling, and also going on like this long mental health healing journey and finding all of the things and the toolbox essentially that helps me deal and manage my anxiety on a daily basis, which was kind of then what led me on to starting Tina, which is essentially a mental wellbeing marketplace for people that are struggling with their mental health and don't really know where to go. It's kind of that point where, you know, you've got that self-awareness, but you don't really understand what's happening to you and you don't really know how to fix it. And we're that centralized point, and that's been born out of a place of my own frustrations of not getting the support and finding the resources and the support that I needed when I was really struggling. So we've recently launched that. So yeah, lots of things happening. I also have 2 podcasts, so I'm kind of ventured from this really structured career where I was climbing up a ladder. It was a very easy known path to this path of complete unknown, just figuring things out as I go along, whilst also trying to just maintain and sustain a decent level of mental health and physical health at the same time.
Yes. Yes. I know.
So sorry, there's like some drilling just next door. Hopefully they stop. I think that stopped.
Yeah, let me dive into I think the health thing. I feel like a lot, you know, like every time we talk about our stories, or a lot of times, that common thread seems to be like we were doing stuff, but we stopped a lot of times because of the mental health. Like something, our health was deteriorating, and to the point where we then couldn't manage the way what we were doing, and it made us go search for a better way, a different way, right? Like that we feel the stress or the unease, but that necessarily doesn't change. It doesn't help us. It's not enough of a motivator to change. But once the help comes in and you're just kind of, immobilization also helps, right? That 2020.
Absolutely, exactly. I think to be honest, I think sometimes you can feel things and like know something's wrong, but you don't necessarily have the label for it. And I think when you start going down that route of like really understanding what's happening for you, that's when you start to make the changes, because ultimately everything comes back down to a place of self-awareness. If you don't have that self-awareness, you can't really make the changes. And sometimes, unfortunately, which was my case, you kind of have to get to that like breaking point where everything crumbles for you to be able to make the changes as well.
Yes. Yes, I just find it so interesting. I feel like, and even then, a lot of people don't listen, right? Like, how many times have I heard, right? Oh, I've been dealing with this for years, and it's just like what it is, my back is just bad, or my knee is just giving out, right? So some people still don't take the hint, I feel like, whereas others, like, others, we do take the hint, and we're like, no, I don't like this anymore. Like, this is my level of, Like,
exactly. Well, I think
sorry.
it's not even that people don't take the hint. I think it's that people don't know another way. Like quite often we get stuck in our discomfort because we don't realize that actually there's a life out there without the discomfort. So I think a lot of people just lack that self-awareness, lack the knowledge that they can change and they can make a change. And sometimes people just get comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's a bit of a scary place to be in, because then you could literally live a whole life of unhappiness or pain or whatever it is that you're in without really realizing that actually there probably are things you can do to make a change. You just have to go out there and try and figure out what it looks like for you.
True. That brings me back to my back pain actually for years. Yeah, I've had I've had the back pain too. And I was like, what can I do and things like that. And well, I was struggling, with my new baby and like managing my job and things like that. So my health was kind of last. And then with COVID, like where did you go? Like you just couldn't go anywhere and get help. So I was just kind of stuck with it. And then finally it got so bad that I hurt my back so bad that I was just laying on the floor. Like I needed my husband to get me back in the house because it happened. I was trying to catch my dog. My dog was running over to the neighbor's house and I was trying to pick him up and be like, no, let's go back home. And as I was bending down, it was like, or whatever. And I couldn't even get up. And I was like calling my husband, like, I let the dog down and I was like, oh God, like, I don't know how I'm gonna, oh my God.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
He put me in the office and I was just laying there. I was just laying on the floor, like, okay, I'm just gonna not. And every time I moved, it was like so painful. But long story short, I eventually went to like a chiropractor, right? And over, I think like the course of a year, they put me back in alignment. Apparently my hip, there was problems with and stuff. And so yes. And
Well, that's the
then
other thing, isn't it? Everything's connected, right? Like it might not have even just been your back, like your whole body is connected as with your mind. Like sometimes mental pain also manifests as physical pain. So sometimes it's really hard to tell whether, you just have a bad back or actually there's some kind of emotion that's trapped or that you need to release as well. So sometimes it's very difficult unless you go through that diagnosis period. It's really hard to tell like where the issue is actually coming from.
right, that's true. No, but what I wanted to say was that after the pain was gone, like I was actually like, oh my God, like how did I live with this for so long? Like it is so nice not to have the pain anymore. And like how did I, like once a month I was basically out and I would just kind of have to lay there for like a day or something like that, And it was just like such a standard of living, like it was like such routine, like we said before, right? That it's just like it was like part of my thing. Oh, okay, now I have to lay there for a day and until I can feel better. It was like so crazy, and now I'm like, oh my God. Yes, so I didn't take the hint quite well either.
Sometimes it takes a while.
Yeah, and like you said, if you're not in touch, if you're just so out of touch, and it was so hard too, like with COVID, like to go places, to find help, to be anywhere, right? Like, you just kind of kept to yourself, and you're like, okay, in here is probably better than out there. So it was it was just kind of like so much, and not many places were open, and people didn't want to touch you and talk with you and stuff, right? So it was just,
Yeah, definitely. I think it's like I say, it's a case of self-awareness is the first starting point, right, to making some kind of change, regardless of what that change needs to be. And then it's a case of going down the route of trying to figure out like what's the problem. But you're right, like there's so many barriers also along that way, particularly at that moment in time, but even generally in life. Like a lot of people don't have access to the healthcare that they need, or don't have the finances to get the support that they need, or maybe they can't get it on, like for example, if you're in the UK, on the NHS, or you can't get it through your insurance. Like there are still barriers which sometimes, regardless of what your issue is, you just come up against, and you can't then get the support. So I think a lot of people also just give up when they can't get the support that they need. Like let's say you didn't have health insurance to go and get your back fixed, or you didn't have the finances to go and get your back fixed. In some point you're just going to be like, well, what can I do? Like there's nothing more I can do. So unfortunately a lot of people don't give up trying because of the barriers that sometimes present as well.
that's true. Yeah, and I feel it's like twofold, right? Like sometimes you have that the dark, like a lot of times you get just a band-aid, right? Like, hey, you have a tummy issue. Oh, like there's nothing really wrong. Just take the Tom-Toms. Or, oh, you have, like, I don't know, a lot of headaches. Yeah, just take Advil and it's gonna go. Like there's a lot of superficial, right? Diagnoses, and it's super like, oh, just do this and do that. And people, yeah, like kind of go with that, the band-aid versus like really looking deeper. But it's also, I think it's also like a systematic thing, right? Like doctors also don't always look at the holistic picture of all of you. They say, oh, like you have, I don't know, something with your shoulder. Let's just, I don't know, massages, give you some little treatment and poof, right? And the other thing too is I feel like the mental health thing. People know if you have a broken leg or if you need some kind of, like you go see a doctor, but when there's something wrong, right? Like mentally you with your feelings or like the anxiety, ADHD, like all these things, like I feel like people are more hesitant to look for treatment, right? Like they don't know what to label it, they don't know where to go. And there's also the stigma still of, oh my God, you're going, I don't know, going to a therapist or you're going to anybody really to ask about, like, hey, what about your feelings? And especially as a woman too, I feel like we're labeled as, well, we have too many emotions anyways and whatever else. So I think, yeah, there's really needs to be like a shift, right? Of like, oh my gosh, we need to talk about this more, which is part of why we're doing it now, of course. But like, yeah, I feel like it's so sad that's why I feel like, yeah, people don't do those steps. People don't get help. People stay with, with their problems and in loneliness and feel like disconnected from themselves, but also from others, and struggle so hard, so much longer than they need to, because they just don't know, right? There's, like you said, all these barriers, all these problems, and it's really hard to break through and be like, okay, I just have to, like, I can't take this anymore and I need to find a way. And if the doctors can't help, I need to go somewhere else and just kind of that journey.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what we're all about at Tina, is we really want to be able to destigmatize the conversation around specifically mental health, because as you say, it has been highly stigmatized for such a long time, and hasn't been normal to go and seek help for things like anxiety or depression. It's like, previously, especially in the UK and like Western cultures, we're kind of told to like suck it up and just man up and like just get over our problems, when actually we need to address them for them to be released so that we can move on and live a happier life and an easier life. And I think a lot of people, when they've been struggling with something for so long, it actually becomes a little bit part of their identity. So if you've been struggling with anxiety your whole life, you kind of identify yourself with anxiety, in which case you don't know anything differently, right? Like you've like struggled with it for your whole life. So to then be told there's something you can do to change this, one, that person is going to be absolutely terrified, because change is one of the scariest things that we experience as a human. We're terrified of change. And two, that person has been living with this for so long, they don't know any differently. So they're probably not even in full belief that actually things can improve, things can get better. So there's two things that would need to happen. They'd need to be expanded to show them that actually, if you make X, Y, Z changes, this could be you in 6 to 12 months time, for example. And then they also need to get access to those resources. And essentially that's what we're trying to do with Tina, particularly when it comes to mental health. There's no one place you can go on the internet right now to get access to the resources, the education, and like that destigmatized conversation of all the things that you need to help start improving your mental health. So for somebody that's at that kind of awareness stage, like I mentioned earlier, I was at when I was like 26 years old, started to go on that healing journey, started with my fitness routines, and then found all of these other things. That person that's at that breaking point, at that point of like becoming aware of what's kind of happening for them, or like that something's not quite right, but they don't quite know what to do about it, they could come to Tina essentially and figure out, right, this is happening for me. Maybe I need to make these changes, and maybe this is going to help me. And then we're kind of like holding space with that conversation and opening up that conversation to make them understand, like, this is normal. This is happening to not just you, like this is happening to other people. It's safe to get help. It's safe to change things in your life to help you improve your life in the long run. And I think it's just a case of really just, like I say, I'm just all about self-awareness. I don't think you can start making those changes until you become really aware of like what it is that needs to change. But essentially Tina is that like centralized location where you can kind of get access to all of those resources that's going to help empower you to take those changes, educate you on what is possible to achieve by yourself, and destigmatize that conversation to make it feel more comfortable and make you feel more comfortable in seeking out that help that maybe you need. Because a lot of people, when we were doing our research for Tina, I would say about 80% of the survey results that we got back said that they were not comfortable talking about or seeking help for their mental health due to embarrassment or stigma, which is a massive number. So we really want to be part of that change. Your podcast is obviously part of that change, and like trying to open up those conversations and make it more normal. Basically, it doesn't have to be scary, it doesn't have to be a hard conversation. You can just speak about it in a little bit more of a light-hearted way to make it feel like a safer subject to speak about.
Right. Could you walk me through, like if I go to your website, right, and like I don't know, I'm stressed out, or I have some what would transpire? Like where would I go? Like I know you said like there's education stuff, but could you walk me through it a bit more? Like how it would
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So our website essentially is for, like I say, those people that know that they need to do something to change. It's not necessarily for someone that has these issues and doesn't want to change, because ultimately we can't help somebody that doesn't want to make changes, because ultimately to get the results you have to make changes. It's also not for somebody that is on the other end of the spectrum, where they are really, really severely struggling and need professional medical support, because we are not a replacement for medical professional support. We are just complementary to that. So most of the things that we recommend and suggest, they are science backed. They're not just from our personal experiences. I have a business partner. She's got a background in the psychology field, and she has vetted everything that we put on the website to make sure that it is science backed from like a clinical perspective as well, to have some kind of benefit. So when you land on our website, there's a couple of things that you can do. The first one would be like, if you come onto the website and you're like, I have no idea where to start with this, it's such a big subject, we've got a quiz that you can take, and it will basically explain where you're currently at in your mental healing journey. So it could be that you know that you need to make a change, but you've never made any changes. You're really scared to take that first step. You've got absolutely no idea what you can even do or what's possible to achieve, in which case we're literally starting you from the basics. These are the very basic things that maybe you might want to change if you're experiencing XYZ symptoms that potentially relate to anxiety, let's say. So you're kind of at that very early stages. Off the back of that quiz, we might direct you to resources such as our blog posts, our podcast, or we might recommend some products for you to start helping you educate and become a little bit more self-aware, so that you could then go on that healing journey. Whereas if you're at the other end of the spectrum and you are already on a bit of a healing journey, you've already gone through some mental health healing work, you maybe have done some CBT therapy, maybe you've already started doing some yoga, some breath work, some journaling, we've got like the more advanced things to recommend you, to say, right, you've already started, we know that you're on track, we know that you're self-aware, you already have a good understanding of like what's happening for you. Maybe just making these changes to your routines, or maybe making these changes in your lifestyle might help elevate that healing journey even further. So you can kind of come to us for that understanding of like where you're at, or you can come on and automatically use all of the free resources. So we have a blog and we've got a podcast which has loads of educational resources about various different mental health challenges or things associated with mental health that maybe you didn't even know were linked to mental health. And then we also recommend different, like essentially the best way to get results for your mental health. And like particularly when I say mental health, I'm specifically kind of focusing, I would say from my personal experiences, on anxiety and depression. So there are things that you can do to make changes in your lifestyle and changes in your routine to help you. I'm not saying they're cures, right? Like there's nothing that's going to cure you, but you can make changes to improve the way that you are living, to improve your mental health, and generally see changes happen over a period of time. So We offer different routines and lifestyle changes. Like, so literally map out, you're struggling with anxiety. Here is a step-by-step morning routine that you can take, that if you do this on a consistent basis day by day, you are going to see results over time. Nothing happens overnight. You might wake up and start implementing this routine tomorrow. Are you going to feel better tomorrow? Probably not. This is a consistent progress that you're going to see if you consistently take the actions. And then off the back of those routines, we recommend products to you that may be able to support you in taking those actions, essentially. So, for example, going back, if we were talking about that morning routine for anxiety, one of those stages would be to do a quick 5-minute meditation. We might recommend you the meditation app. Or it might be to do a brain dump journaling session just when you first wake up to get all of those thoughts out of your head and onto paper. We'll recommend you the journal. We're not selling anything directly through our platform at the moment. We're selling everything through an affiliate basis. So there's no obligation to buy if you don't want to buy. It's literally just there as a suggested product, because ultimately the last thing somebody wants to do when they're in a state of mental health crisis is search the internet for things that are going to help them. So our platform is essentially that centralized place that you can come to find it all under one roof, so that if you are in a moment of need, you don't have to go and stress yourself out and try and figure this all out yourself. We're going to give you the answers, give you the solutions, give you the recommendations that are going to help you start healing, basically.
Nice. So do you also work with other practitioners or other people, sent you to, I don't know, a mindfulness class, a meditation class, like a real, like you have some other resources outside people, or maybe like some seminars or something, workshops?
Yeah, that's definitely in the plan for next year. Obviously, we're still a new business, we're growing, but we've started with the routines and the products. But as of 2025, when we go into 2025, we will be launching events, and we will be partnering with other wellness practitioners to host those events. We'll also be starting to recommend services, wellness practitioners, apps. So it ventures off. There's a lot of different ways we can take Tina. Essentially, we want to be the place to be when you are struggling with your mental health. So we want to facilitate all of these things. It's just a case of time and resource and money at the moment, but it will get there eventually. They are definitely in our plans for next year.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds awesome. I was just wondering, I feel like, yes, that would be the logical next step. Very cool. It sounds definitely super interesting. Gotta check it out. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's so good. Yeah, another topic that seems to always come up is like, we have the happy life, but we're on, like it looks like the dream life from the outside. Everybody's like, you've got the awesome job and you've got everything, everybody else would be so happy. And then you're looking at yourself like, but I am not happy. Why am I not happy? Or like you worked on these things for so long and you're like, yes, I finally achieved, I don't know, my master's, or I finally got this promotion. I finally did this, and now I should be happy, but I am not. Why?
Yeah, I know. It's a common misconception, isn't it? Like, I guess people on paper, like there are societal norms, societal expectations that if you achieve X, you are going to feel Y. And unfortunately, life is not a scientific equation. That doesn't happen. So I feel like, we've been trained and conditioned into believing that things or people or experiences are going to make us feel a certain way, when actually that is so far from the truth. Actually, the true key, there's been quite a lot of studies done, and we speak about this a lot on our Tina Talks podcast, is that actually the only true form of happiness is where you are in that present moment in time, is to like be present and experience that in that current moment of time. Because ultimately, anxiety is often you thinking too far ahead in the future, and depression is often thinking about the past. So when you are struggling with your mental health, if you are struggling with anxiety, it's often because you are thinking about what's next, what's coming next, what do I need to think about, oh my god, how can I make that plan, like how can I get to my next role, how can I make more money, how can I improve my relationship. You're thinking about the future that doesn't exist We don't know what it looks like. You can plan all you want, but it may not turn out in the way that you think it's going to turn out. Or if you're struggling with depression, you're probably reminiscing, you're probably thinking about things that have happened or did happen, and you're like worried about the way that it materialized, or you're sad about the way that it happened, whatever that looks like. Unfortunately, again, we can't change that. It happened. It's in the past. We can't go back. We can't rewrite history. So the only moment that we actually have is now. And ultimately, the only way we can find happiness is in the moment that we're currently in. And I think we resist those things. Like we always seek more. And it doesn't matter what situation we're in. We could be self-employed, we could be employed, we could be single, we could be in a relationship. We're always searching for something else that's going to fulfill us and fulfill us from an external place, when actually we need to be looking internally and fulfilling ourselves internally before we can go and enjoy all of the other experiences. Otherwise, like I said, what I was talking about with my jobs in my career, I was always thinking, oh, there's something wrong here. Like, what is wrong? Thinking it's the job. Oh, I'll move jobs. Oh, maybe it's my country that I'm living in. Oh, I'm going to move country. Like, maybe it's my friendship group going to change some friends. Oh, maybe it's my relationship going to change my relationship. I did that for so long and I still wasn't fulfilled. And I was like, well, why? Like, on paper, I have it all. Like, I literally have everything that I ever thought I wanted, but I still am not happy with that. And actually, the deeper cause was that I wasn't particularly happy with myself. And I would never have, at that moment in time, said that I didn't like myself. That wasn't a thing for me. Like, I've never felt that way about myself. But actually, like you were saying, there's like all of these core layers. There's something way deeper that until you start becoming more self-aware, until you start doing a little bit of healing work, you just don't really know. And that's why so many people feel stuck in their life, because they're not willing to go down that rabbit hole. Because when you open that, it's kind of like a never-ending journey, honestly.
That's so true. That's so true. Yeah, I guess the core theme is you always take you with wherever you go, you have you with you, right? Like, even if you change your job, if you are unhappy, there's something within you that is not right. You are taking it to your new job, you're taking it to your new country, and you're taking it into your new relationship. And I think that's the common thread, right? That, yeah, it comes from the inside. You have to look inside. And nobody outside no circumstance, no person, nobody can make you happier or more fulfilled or whatever. It comes from within you. You have to look, right? And fill up your own cup. And make sure, yeah, that's where you aligned, and then it will present itself in the outside as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people don't realize that, or maybe they've heard it and thought, oh, what cliche, but actually it's true. And like, I can say that from personal experience. And I would have been, if you'd have told me 6 years ago that I would be working in the mental health field, or even running my own business, or even like going on this whole mental healing journey, even like doing yoga and meditation, I would have laughed in your face, because like that just wasn't even in my world of opportunities. I didn't know that was possible for myself. And I think until you've gone through that change, and I feel like it's quite a natural change when you hit like your late 20s, 30s anyway, you naturally do go through life changes, and you're no longer the person you were when you were 21, wanting to go out and do all of these things and explore. Like, you start going a bit more inwards, and rather than seeking validation externally, I think you start realizing you need to seek it internally. And I think it's a really difficult thing to accept to yourself. I feel like it's not like something you're like, oh, I need to work on myself. Okay, cool, let's go. It's more like a process of, oh, this isn't working in my life. What do I need to do to change it? And you also go through that period of acceptance, a period of grief of like your old habits, your old life, your old behaviors, because that is also part of you. You might still love that part of you as well, but ultimately that wasn't fulfilling you. It wasn't making you happy. So you know that something needs to change. But yeah, it's definitely a process, is what I like to call it.
Oh, yes, it sure is. And obviously, yeah, it's like you've been walking this way for, 3 decades. I mean, that is a long time that you operated this way. So yes, change is hard. And your mind is like, well, no, you've made it here. We're safe. We're good. Why do we need to change, kind of thing? So there's this, yeah, like you said, we don't really want to leave the comfort zone. And the other thing that you mentioned earlier, right? Like we open this box. Everybody is like, oh no, there's this messy box. I'm just gonna shove it underneath the, the bed, and I don't want to go look at that. But the thing is, you always have it under the bed, like every time, like you do something or you're like laying there at night and you're like, man, there's this thing under the bed, like it has an influence on you. So rather than pushing it back down and just kind of living with it, right? Like, yes, it's going to be a messy process to go through it and through the muck. But once you're on the other side, like you're free of that. And yes, there's more, of course. I don't want to lie to you. Like, it is a journey. And, once you unearth that box, yes, there's other things that you didn't even know were there.
Yeah.
But it becomes easier too to work through it. And, I mean, you lighten your load. Like, seriously, like, all the stuff that we carry around, all the old trauma and all the, I don't know, things that sometimes weren't even our things to take on, right? Like, how many things are we carrying that isn't serving us, and really starting that journey to look like, is it serving me? Is it not? And then let it go and drop it. I think that was part of my journey. Of course, with my back, I was really just carrying the world on my shoulders, and I just needed to drop it. And yes, I'm saying it like it was easy, but yes, it was not. It's like years and years and years.
Yeah.
And yes, I tried everything else too. Like, but I think you probably have to. You have to try other things first, and only, like I changed the country and the relationship and the jobs and things like that. I was also all over, always trying to find, where's my place and where should I be? And yeah, eventually, yes, I also had to just accept that nothing in the outside can fix what's wrong in the inside, and just, yes. Sit down.
The thing is as well, like the less acceptance that you have of it, you're just going to keep repeating, right? Like you're going to go through the same cycles. Like one thing that I've realized is that life is just a pattern of behavior. So you will go through one cycle, and if you don't make a change at the end of that cycle, you're going to repeat the same cycle. I like kind of refer to it as like a racetrack. It's like you could go round and round and round the same course on the racetrack, but you are going to keep going round in circles until you decide to take a path, the second route, till you take a path off of that race course and go onto a new path that you don't know what it looks like. The circle is really familiar. You know which way you're going to keep going, so it feels comfortable. And a lot of people like to live in their comfort zones, but actually the growth that you need to do and the person that you want to be is on the other side of your comfort zone. Unfortunately for us, it's not an easy place to go. And it's like, yeah, like you say, you can shove all of the junk, all of the crap, all of the challenges under the bed, but eventually there's not going to be any space left under the bed, so it's going to overspill. You're going to have all of this stuff all over the floor, and you're going to be like, oh, now I need to start tidying it up. Where am I going to put it? And that's the point when it's like that breakdown, that overflow of emotion, that you start to say, oh, something needs to change now. And that's when people take that second path.
Yes. Yeah. Like I said, it's not easy. It definitely it really is like muddy waters. You don't know and you don't see, and you really, I mean, me sitting there, like in the beginning, I was doing my meditations. I was sitting there, like I had such a hard time. I'm like, I'm just not good at meditation. I cannot calm my mind and this and that. And I was, yes, it was a struggle, but eventually it got better. I kept on practicing, even, sometimes it was just the 5 minutes, or I tried other things, right? Like journaling and this and that, and breath work. And I tried, like in the beginning, I always felt like it was really helpful if somebody else had the reins, like somebody was guiding me through and was, giving me the little hints of, hey, if your mind, wandered or something, or even in yoga, let's do this pose and this pose, because I just couldn't do it on my own. Like I had no creativity of where to go, where to take it. And then I would just get frustrated of like, oh, like, I don't know. And I'm not feeling, if I have to think about this right now, like that's going to stress me. But eventually it totally shifted from like, oh yeah, I want that guidance, to, oh no, I know what I need, today. Like I know how my body wants to move with yoga poses. And I just kind of I felt more at ease, right? Like I didn't want that guidance. I wanted to move the way I wanted to move. I wanted to listen to my body and just kind of, go with the flow. And the same with meditation. I was able to just, breathe and relax and just kind of accept that the mind is going places, but to just gently bring it back, become aware and things like that. So, but obviously that was also years. Like it's not like I'm sitting down and today I have the monkey mind and I'm frustrated and tomorrow I've got this figured out. And there's still days, right, where I feel flustered or challenges that throw me off, and I have to check and be like, okay, there's something I need to realign. I think that's life, right? Life is just a constant flow of things, and it's supposed to keep us on our toes. It's supposed to flow, and it's supposed to, right, help us shift and move and take on new opportunities to grow even more. And so, yes, to the people out there that are trying to control, try and loosen a little bit of those reins and try and go more with the flow. And I know when you're in that, like in that crazy state of stress and anxiety, and you just really want to hold on more, it is the worst thing I can tell you, right? Because you're like, how am I going to let go? The world is going to fall. But yes, try and practice in very small doses. Try and find something that you can let go of and just kind of go take it from there. Like really small changes, small shifts, tiny little things, and see how you feel and how you go with that. And if it improves, right? Like you're like, okay, that wasn't, it's still working and it's not the way it needed to be or whatever, but it's okay. I can live with it. You implement more and more, and before you know it, things just kind of take a whole new shift, and it becomes, you're just easing into it a bit more. And I can't even tell you how much of the weight has fallen off just by me not trying to control everything.
Yeah, ultimately the only thing we can control, right, is ourselves.
Yes.
Like everything else is out of our control. So we might as well make use of that power that we have and control what is within our remits than try and control the things that we can't. So other people's thoughts, other people's feelings, the way somebody behaves towards you, we have no way of controlling that or manipulating that situation. So we don't need to stress about it. The only thing we need to control is our reactions, the way we show up for ourselves, the way we show up for other people. And ultimately, like you said, it's not hard. It's actually it's not easy. It's a hard journey, like to go on, to understanding that, even to sitting through the meditations, doing the yoga, to showing up for yourself every day. But ultimately, that is within your power. You are able to do it, and it's just a case of like training your mind. Your mind is a muscle. So ultimately, all of the resistance you feel is coming from your mind. So you just need to train it and be consistent and keep moving through it. And that's essentially like finding your toolkit of what works for you, because what works for you to help you calm your monkey mind might not be what works for me. Like everyone's so different. And essentially that's what we're trying to do with Tina, is like say, right, we don't have all of the solutions for you. We don't have a cure for you right now, but we do have options. You do have options, and these are your options. Give this a go, give that a go, see what works for you, and then rinse and repeat. Keep going at it, because when you find something that works for you, it just clicks. And then you can start to see the progression very, very quickly from there. But it does take a little bit of trial and error to kind of get to that place, I'd say.
Yes, that's true. Thank you so much, Sophie. This was such a great episode. I really think we touched on a lot of good things, and I really can't wait to check out the website.
Thank you. You're welcome, and thanks for having me.
Yes. And is there, if people want to connect with you, what would be a good way?
Yeah, definitely. So you can find the website at www.timeisnotahealer.com. And we're at Time Is Not a Healer on social media. We're on most platforms. We also have a podcast. It's called Tina Talks. So we do stigmatize the conversation all around mental health. And if you want to connect with me personally, my Instagram is at it's Sophie Biggerstaff.
Yes, awesome. I'll definitely put that in the show notes.
Thank you.
and easy access. Perfect. Thank you so very much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, what an amazing episode with Sophie. This one really made me think about access to mental health care, or lack thereof, way more deeply. And the fact that there's 80% of people out there that really still don't feel comfortable talking about mental health and help because of the stigmas associated with this is really powerful. And also some big numbers. But yes, I did love their website, Tina. I checked it out. There's lots of information there, lots of things where you can educate yourself, reading their blog, listen to the podcast, and lots of suggestions on, how you can build a better routine, products and things that could help support your new journey, right? Whether that be journals and candles and like even a bed of nails. So lots of things. And I even get myself, I took the survey and I get some great recommendations for myself. But what I like best about the Tina website was that big box. It said, time is not a healer, but you can heal yourself. Because I think that is what it's all about. It all comes back to you. But also some notes that I wrote down from the episode was, right, that mental pain can really manifest, right, in physical ways. So whatever you're carrying, thoughts that you're repeating, traumas you haven't dealt with can really, right, get stuck somewhere in your body and present as pain, right, as real physical pain, your shoulder, your back, whatever. And I think that's very interesting to look at, right? And have a really deep, long look in the sense of, hey, what does my body want to tell me, right? And what can I do proactively to maybe relieve some of this tension, some of the pain? Is there something that I can do? Is there something that I'm holding on to that is no longer serving me? I loved how she explained the difference between anxiety and depression, how anxiety is more, your focus is looking towards the future. And that is why you get anxious, because you're constantly thinking about your next steps and things like that. And then depression is more, you're focusing more on the past. You're reminiscing and reliving things that didn't go the way that you were hoping for, and you get depressed, and it's holding you back from even trying again, right? And so I thought that was really cool, like some really good examples of like both, and how how important it is really to stay in the middle, in the present. Yes, we want to plan for the future, and yes, we want to look at the past and gain some lessons from it, but we don't want to venture too far in either direction. We want to come back to the present, because that's really what we only have, and that's where we can stay calm and collected and at peace, because that's the only moment we have, right? We cannot control what happens tomorrow, and we cannot control what went wrong in the past, but we can control right now. How am I showing up right now? How am I communicating right now? How am I taking care of myself right now? What decisions am I making right now? And that's really powerful, right? Because every day we get a new chance to make a difference in our lives, to show up as the person that we want to be. And it all starts with the awareness that there might be something that we all need to look at. There might be something that we need to work on. And then we go on the journey. We go find the root cause. We might be shifting something, create some new habits and routines, and we come up with a toolkit. We try different strategies, and we come up with a toolkit of how to best take care of ourselves. Because that's our job, right? No one is coming to save you. No one's coming to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself. And what better time to start than right here, right now? Make 2025 your year. Now, what were the biggest takeaways from this episode for you? Do you have any questions for me or for Sophie? Or do you have any topics that you would like me to discuss in the future? Let me know in the comments below and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you all for listening.